Let's preview the Charlotte Hornets, all of the fantasy basketball value that may or may not appear. Michael Bolton, float like a butterfly, sting like a hornet. Is that it?
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and words are just what? Nothing. Complicated airflow. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, and we are available on all platforms. All right, we're going to get into talking about the Charlotte Hornets, their fantasy value for the upcoming season. Remember, the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl is open. We have filled a lot of head-to-head category leagues. We filled one of the entire Points League bowls. The Roto one is almost filled up. We've got $50, $75, and $100 price points there as well. There will be draft and stash leagues coming. There will be best ball drafts coming. There will be auctions coming in some form. I don't know that it'll be the full bowl sort of setup just because of I need to get enough people in for auctions and the difficulty in arranging them. But we'll see where we go with that. I think we'll be okay, but I'm not sure they will come up. The link is in the description. It's on the QR code on the screen. It is linktree/LOFB bowl. You can sign up for as many as you want. Get into some competitive leagues with slow drafts and maybe some auctions coming down the line as well. We are here, like I said, talking about the Charlotte Hornets from a fantasy perspective. We did get some news on Tyler Herro, which is not obviously Hornets related. He was someone that I was pretty high on this season. He is going to miss the start of the season, probably back late November. There'll be a bit of a ramp-up period in that as well. This moves him down draft boards, but it doesn't make him off draft boards at all. Like, it just means you don't want to take him inside the top 50. He might miss a month of the season, which is not good, but it's not a disaster. All right, so I would, if I'm getting him in the 80s, I'm very happy with that. 70s, I'm happy. It moves Davion Mitchell and Norman Powell a little bit higher, but also remember that when Herro is back and we're sitting here in the 10th of January, the rotation's going to look the same, I think, as what we thought it was going to look before today, before Herro was hurt. Right, so it's not like, wow, that's a huge long-term investment we've got in Mitchell or Powell. Their value will slide back. So just be aware of that. Let's talk Charlotte Hornets. Let's get into discussing this team for the upcoming season. They are a team that has been annoying. Obviously, they've got players who are exciting for fantasy, players who put up good numbers at times, but can never really seem to get things cracking on a consistent basis. You can see my projected rotation for this team. I am uncertain about two of these spots. Three are absolutely locked in. LaMelo Ball is going to start, Brandon Miller is going to start, and Miles Bridges is going to start without any question. At this time, the time of me recording this, on September the 19th, I have Moussa Diabate as the starting center. I do not think Moussa Diabate is a starting caliber NBA center. I don't think he's a huge upside player at all. Their other options are second-round rookie Ryan Cockbrenner, the big cock, and the cockroach, Mason Plumlee. Now, I think it's probably more likely that Plumlee starts at center than it is Cockbrenner. We've seen this team with rookies, these sort of players like Cockbrenner, play it very slowly. Remember, they didn't start Brandon Miller. First game that he played, there was other veterans in front of him. I think it's more likely that Plumlee starts than it is that Cockbrenner starts, but I think that when we get to February, Cockbrenner will be a very strong fantasy player. The other position there is, and this one, I don't know, but the big Areola, Con Knipple. Fourth pick in the draft. I've got him starting now, but honestly, if I did this in an hour's time, I'd say he probably doesn't. They probably start Collin Sexton. But remember, they didn't really go out to acquire Collin Sexton. They received Collin Sexton along with draft picks. They were the team getting dumped on. AO. Like they were getting the player dumped on them. They didn't give up assets. They got up Yusuf Nurkic and then got picks back to get Sexton. Sexton can be a bench player. He can be a starter. And even if Sexton does start the season as a starter, which is possible, I'm pretty sure he won't end there. So it could be him, it could be Knipple. Anyway, the rotation I think is going to include Sexton, obviously, Trey Mann, Grant Williams when he's back from his ACL, Mason Plumlee, again, I think will be ahead of Ryan Kalkbrenner early, as bad as that might be. I think that's how they'll do it. And then the other one there is Tijan Salan. This also, I'm not even including Liam McNeely, who I think is a better player than Salan at this point. It's not including Josh Green, who's going to miss the start of the season as well. But that's not a great grouping, as I'm sure you're well aware. Let's have a look at where some questions lie in these projections for the Hornets. One of the big questions is going to be, will a center be able to emerge? At this point, it's hard to sort of, especially from a season-long projection point of view of the Hornets, is that, I think it's going to be very different month by month. Like, I think there is a chance Plumlee starts as the starting center, and I think by February there's a chance he's playing 0 minutes. So when you look at season-long numbers, and this is, again, there can be problems with projections and how you interpret them. And then also when you look at, if you go back to a previous season and look at averages and go, well, look, he averaged this over the course of the season. But fantasy is an up and down and ebb and flow game. So does it matter if Plumlee averages 20 minutes a game but gets 26 for the first 2 months and 0 for the end? Or 10 for the end? Like, that's not a great investment. Or do you draft him early if he here is the starting center and then you decide to move on later on? All of those decisions become format specific. I think Kalkbrenner will be the better option, but he is a second-round rookie, and that is just not a player that gets those big opportunities out the gate. And Diabate is not a very good fantasy player. He's a incredibly low-usage guy who doesn't protect the rim or block shots. He's a decent field goal guy who gets rebounds. I think it's going to be very messy. There'll be moments where we consider all three of those centers, Kalkbrenner, Plumlee, and Diabate, but it's iffy. The next question I've got there is Collin Sexton just a filler player? And that's not a misspelling of flyer, it's filler. Because when they acquired Sexton, like I said, they got Collin Sexton and draft picks. The Jazz paid them in draft picks to take Collin Sexton. Now, Sexton last season played 28 minutes on that Jazz team that was sort of back and forward and up and down. He's only 26 years of age and he had 27 usage. He averaged 18 points with 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Bad steals, bad blocks, good free throws, hit his threes well. He's a solid scorer. But his numbers aren't great. Will he get 27 usage on this team? Almost certainly not. So, I don't know. That's again, when I put Knipple into that starting lineup, are they viewing Sexton as a guy, well, yeah, look, he's going to be a key part of what we do as we make a push for 2 or 3 months? Or is he just there to be a bench depth guard guy that maybe holds a role that's elevated for a month until Knipple is more ready, or Trey Mann's back, or Josh Green returns, or whatever? So I don't, at this point, I don't really know how they're viewing him, and that becomes hard. Like, I'm not going to be interested in drafting him really because I don't think it's a long-term thing. The next question, again, seems confusing on the surface. I say, is Grant Williams the projection fulcrum? And what does that mean? That means to me, well, not to me, obviously to me because I wrote it, but when I'm talking about what can Grant Williams be and why is he the fulcrum, the linchpin of this? Because when he returns from his ACL injury, what if they just say Grant Williams, who was playing 30 minutes a night last season, what if they just say he's our starting center? He plays backup 4. He plays at the 5. He plays 31 minutes a night. So all of our Plumlee, Kalkbrenner, Diabate decisions don't mean anything. That opens up more minutes at the 4 for McNeely. It means Brandon Miller can push up. They can play smaller with Sexton and Knipple together if they're going for true small ball. Or if Williams isn't ready, or he's strictly a backup 4, then it squishes other guys down positions. And that means Bridges plays a little bit more at the 3. Stopping those opportunities for those other guys. And it means those centers have to be a big part of it. Now, I don't think that we need to be looking at Grant Williams as a must-draft player, but there were significant stretches last season when Grant Williams was useful enough to consider. So he's an interesting player. LaMelo Ball has had a gigantic load over the last couple of seasons. He has had insanely high usage. He's obviously been hurt a lot of the time. But if you've got Brandon Miller in year 3, there's Miles Bridges, there is Collin Sexton, there's Trey Mann who should be healthy, will Ball's load be emptied? I don't know if it'll be dropped that far, but he was at like 35 usage last season. Could he be 32? Will that impact his efficiency, where he shot just 34 from 3 and 41 overall? Does that mean the 25 scoring goes up or goes down? He only played 32 minutes a night, so that's nothing to do with usage. I tell you one thing you'll always also hear a lot, by the way, about usage, and I know it's a misunderstood stat at times. You'll hear people talking about usage, how that relates to turnovers in fantasy, and you go, yeah, of course, your high usage players, they're just going to get more turnovers. Yes. Do you know why that's true? It's because usage is made up of turnovers. So I don't know why that not bothers me, but I think it can lead to confusion because, well, this guy's a high usage guy, so he's going to get turnovers. Well, he's a high usage guy in part because he gets turnovers. It's a different situation. It's not that everyone with high usage gets turnovers. It's that turnovers are 1/3 of the usage formula. So again, I don't know why I'm even harping on that, but it is important to note that all your high usage guys are turnover guys. It's because turnovers create usage. Anyway, side point. Ball, we have worries about injuries, which again, I think some of them are not fake, but they are extra cautious with them because they're not competing. And as soon as Brandon Miller went down last season, they didn't need to get Ball out there as much. So I think they might be bad again this season, which gives me some concern about LaMelo. But I do think that usage just might come down a little bit. The last projection question I've got here for this Hornets squad is, does Knipple have any space? And I'm not saying space in the term of spacing of three-point shooting. It's, does he have room to have the ball? Because if he's starting and he's playing next to Ball and Bridges and Miller, or he plays in a second unit and then Trey Mann and Collin Sexton come in, when does he get it? When does he get the ball to show that he can be a guy that can handle, can dribble, can drive, can shoot, can orchestrate? When is there ever space to do that? Normally, a top 4 pick on a bad team who I think is going to start, I'd be all over considering drafting them. But I just think, given Knipple's game, that you probably won't milk enough out of it to make it worthwhile. Like, we are talking about a situation where he might be just quite passive in amongst these other guys, and he's just not going to get fed to the amount that we need to get the value where it needs to be to make it make sense. We've got more Hornets guys to talk about, undervalued, overvalued guys. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. So think about the last time you had something that was urgent, plumbing, electricity maybe, wind damage. You don't wait and go, oh, well, my car can't move because my house collapsed on it. The guy can answer the phone tomorrow. Right? No, you go to the next person. That's where Open Phone comes in, the number one business phone system, built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all for an app on your phone or on your computer. OpenPhone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app, and the shared inbox feature is a game changer, meaning that your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat, and their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering you guys 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That is openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone. No missed calls and no missed customers. Okay, we are talking Charlotte Hornets here. Let's have a look at some undervalued guys on this squad. And I think there are some certain, and with this stuff, right, there's so many ways to view value and drafting. There's ranks, there's ADPs, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not gonna go through and highlight every single little spot where there's 4 or 5 areas of difference. I'm mainly going to cover the ones where when you go into a draft room, the ADP and the rank look so egregiously off based on where I value a player that I think it makes them worth talking about. And that's where I am with LaMelo Ball for ESPN points leagues, because he's just pushed down too far. Again, I think that LaMelo has a shot at a first round value this season. He could be a second round guy easily. And while the injuries have been annoying, very clearly, I think that if they were better, he would have played through most of them. But the problem is I don't think they're going to be that much better. But in ESPN points leagues, he's just pushed down so far that there's a lot of value in that. I also think that Brandon Miller sits at a spot where I don't really understand why he is being as downgraded as he is. For Yahoo category leagues and Fantrax category leagues, I think there's a lot of value in him. For ESPN points leagues, is one of the most egregious rankings I've seen where he's ranked outside the top 100, and I just don't, for a million years, understand why he would be there. Miller last season took 1 million three-pointers, right? And he hit them at a pretty decent rate. 36%, but he hit almost 4 a game, 21 points, 28 usage, 34 minutes, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, a steal. Like those, again, I have been very clear on this. I do not think that Brandon Miller is a future star player. I don't at all. But those numbers as a second-year guy, yeah, the wrist injury happened. Cool. Don't care. Not worried about it. I look at those and go, okay, maybe the usage comes down, but it's not that high. He's heading into year 3. Like where he is currently positioned, it is way more likely to me that Brandon Miller's a top 30 player than it is that he's outside the top 60. Way more likely. I don't understand the insane level of skepticism, especially that ESPN points rankings for Miller. I don't get it. And Miles Bridges is an interesting one in certain aspects. I think Miles Bridges could end up being a disappointment. And that sounds counterintuitive to what I'm telling you here. And that's mainly because I think that when Ball and Miller are there and healthy and playing, that he's just not going to get to do enough. But still, the positioning of Miles Bridges on Fantrax is, and that's mainly category leagues when we're talking Fantrax, I just think it's in the wrong spot. Like his ADP is 77. Okay. I think that he is going to be better than that. I think there's an outside shot at top 60. And again, I'm not a Miles Bridges guy. But I just think that we are under-positioning quite a few of these Hornets guys for whatever reason you want to do it. And some of it is the suckiness of the team. In terms of overvalued guys, there's one clear one that stands out to me, and that is Collin Sexton. It's not to say that he's in a egregiously high position, although he's, for some reason, ranked at 98 on ESPN points leagues, and I couldn't for a million years tell you why that's the case. But he's at 134 ADP and 136 rank on Yahoo. I don't get it anywhere. In those areas of a draft, and 98's very clearly done, right? But in those areas of draft, I want to take someone who there's a shot that this guy can become a top 90, top 80 player. And while Sexton might have a little stretch early on in the season of being okay, I don't think he's got that in him. Even if he used to play 31 minutes a night all season, I don't think he can do that. So I think it's a wasted pick that's probably going to get worse as the year goes on. So I just don't understand why we would consider Collin Sexton as a draftable guy, and especially not as a top 100 player. That just makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. I don't get it. I can't explain it. It's simple as that. I do not understand it. If we look at stars on this team or star upsides, I'm talking about guys who I think are going to be top 50 or can be top 50 players. They're names that we've spoken about in depth here already. LaMelo Ball, who is, again, his ADP is at 27. That's a third round guy. On ESPN, it's at 42. All right, if I'm getting LaMelo Ball in round 4, I'm very happy about it. I would consider it in certain spots in round 2, but I probably would just settle for round 3. And it would depend on what else I've done in other picks in my draft. But I still, there are people who don't believe in LaMelo Ball as a player, and that is something I don't get behind. There are people who don't believe in his health, and I understand that part of it. But I also think that, again, it's about context and looking at every situation and suggesting, again, you can make a blanket statement LaMelo Ball never plays games. Not true. He has done it. You could say LaMelo Ball sits every back-to-back. And again, not true. Literally look at last season. And when he started to miss games, was after Brandon Miller got hurt and the team was absolutely spiraling and they just protected him. So I am concerned, but I'm not as concerned. Brandon Miller, I just spent time talking about him. I think that he should be a top 50 player. I'm not really that concerned about it. And while I don't have Miles Bridges as a top 50 player, I don't think that's outrageous to think that he can get there. Again, I don't believe that he will. I'm not projecting that way, and I don't think you should take Miles Bridges in the top 50 at all. But I do think there is some scope for him to be a little bit of a value. And there can be things that break right that get him into the top 50 area. I think that is very, very obviously possible. In terms of the new arrivals on this team, there are quite a few of them, obviously. We talked about Collin Sexton coming across. Let's talk about Ryan Kalkbrenner, though, because he was someone that I thought the Celtics would take him at the end of the first round where they took Hugo Gonzalez. I thought the Hornets would take Kalkbrenner at the end of the first round where they took Liam McNeely, because these are teams that were desperate for a center. Kalkbrenner gives Brook Lopez, A, because he's tall and white, but B, because he moves slow, he's got a slow release three-point shot, and he blocks shots. He's a drop coverage big. The numbers, if you're watching this on the screen, there is Summer League numbers. I thought he was pretty good. He only hit 29% on threes, and it's an incredibly slow release three-point shot, which is going to have some problems. Defensively, he's a little bit iffy at times, but the shot blocking was fine. And again, when your competition in a starting center competition is Moussa Diabate and Mason Plumlee, you feel pretty good about your abilities to get there eventually. If you're in a deeper league scenario, a weekly changes, a roto, a deep bench, a best ball, Cockburn is a guy I would like to draft because I do think that it will turn for him. But it probably won't be until December or maybe January to get there. Concanipple also a new arrival on this squad. Obviously, he was picked very high in this draft at pick number 4. I like Knipple quite a lot as an overall player. I think he's going to be a very good player on a very good team. Now, unfortunately, this is not a very good team. And that's where we get back to that space question that I asked earlier about Knipple. His summer league numbers, he averaged 15.5 points with 4 assists and 5 rebounds. He ended up shooting 34% and only 74 from the line, which is incredibly weird because I think he missed like 3 free throws his entire season in college. And that's a slight exaggeration, but is it? I'm going to have a look. I'm not sure it's that much of an exaggeration, to be honest. Oh, I'm a liar. It was an exaggeration. He missed 11 free throws. He was 117 of 128. The last player that I can remember that came in from college with sort of that level of elite free throw shooting, I'm sure there's probably been someone else and you can remind me of it, but it was Tyler Herro. Right? He came in after missing, let's have a look. I think Herro missed, maybe it was him that missed 5 free throws in a season. His free throw numbers in college were insane, Tyler Herro, and he turned into an insane free throw shooter in the NBA. Let's have a look. Tyler Herro free throws, he missed 6 in his one season in college, 87 out of 93. So Knipple took more, but didn't hit him. And then somehow, weirdly, at Summer League, he didn't hit his free throws whatsoever. But the numbers overall are good, and this is what he will do. Think about the way that someone like Jason Tatum put up numbers in fantasy. Now, obviously, year 4, 5, 6, Jason Tatum, a different story, where he was able to turn into a high usage 27 point per game scorer. But otherwise, he was a guy that would just hit averages. Or even think about what Denny Avdia's stat line was for all of last season. Just hitting the averages right across the board. I think that's what Knipple can do. It'll be hard to do that initially, but he is an interesting player, and I think he could be a really strong player in between Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. Other guys that came across, you got the cockroach Mason Plumlee. We've got Liam McNeely, who's a stretch 4, who I was really impressed with him in Summer League. It's going to be harder for him to crack in. I think that he should be able to overtake Tijan Salan early on, but Miles Bridges playing that position and Grant Williams returning as well. McNeely's someone that I'm a little bit intrigued with him from a dynasty perspective. Just, I think the opportunities for him don't come this season until we get, or not until, but when there are injuries. And it'll be rocky early on, but I am interested in what he can bring. We've got more new arrivals to talk about, but today's episode is not a new arrival, it's FanDuel, and they've been here with us for a long time, and the NFL season is also here. And FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel because it's easy, it's fast, it's fun. You've got all of the different options of the player props and same-game parlays, live spreads, live betting, live same-game parlays, futures bets across all sports, cross-sport parlays. It's all there on FanDuel. So when you are ready to play, you download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com and get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, we're talking Charlotte Hornets here. We're talking about the new players that have arrived onto the squad. We went through 5 of them already. Got another bunch of players who have joined this team. I don't think they're going to matter that much, but Spencer Dinwiddie is a member of this team. I don't think that Dinwiddie is going to be in the rotation. They're going to have LaMelo Ball. There's going to be Knipple. There's going to be Sexton. And there's going to be Trey Mann. So Dinwiddie is a far cry from a few years ago when they were a week into the season, had no backup point guard, and had to resurrect Ish Smith to come in. Far cry from that. But Dinwiddie was that third string guy that won't play each night is my guess. They also drafted Sion James in the second round. He's a shooting guard / small forward, defensive wing who can move the ball a little bit. He shot the ball well on incredibly low volume, playing alongside Concanipple, but not going to make an impact this season. And then they grabbed Antonio Reeves off the Pelicans and Drew Peterson off the Celtics, two-way guys who can come in. And Reeves showed some flashes at times. I don't think Peterson's anything to be worried about, but Reeves showed some flashes. But this is one of those ones there where we're talking about end-of-season stuff. If you want to talk breakouts, it'd be very easy for me to say that maybe Brandon Miller breaks out. Okay, I'm not going to include him on this list because we've spoken about him already. Could Ryan Cockburn a breakout? He's a rookie, that's not really a breakout. I think the name to look at, and I put this here, this is not me telling you. this player, Moussa Diabate, will break out, because I actually don't believe that he will. This is me showing you guys who I think can or have the opportunity, because so much of breaking out or even fantasy production is, do you have the chance to do it? And given, again, we are going to harp on this, the absolute turterific nature of this center position, is it worse than the Celtics one? I would say it's not, because as much as we might think he's not that good, the Cockroach is actually a better player than any of the centers the Celtics have. Yeah, and I think Kalkbrenner's a better prospect than any of the centers the Celtics have. So it's not quite that bad. It's terrible, though. But Diabate might get an opportunity. He played 17 minutes a night last season. He's not a shot blocker. He's a high field goal percentage player with bad free throws. He's a good rebounder with no scoring, incredibly low usage. He's already 23. He had opportunities last season, but he's not a mainstay guy. But I can't rule it out. What if he just turns a new leaf and becomes a 17 usage player and is not scared of scoring and then somehow blocks a shot once or twice and gets 26 minutes? Again, I will be very clear on this. I do not believe that Moussa Diabate is having a breakout season. I don't believe that. But I do believe he's got a position and an opportunity where it could occur. Like, let's throw Tijan Solana there. Do I think there is any shot of him breaking out? No. I think he's bad. Like, really quite bad. And the path and the position is not there. So, no, I don't think he's got any shot at that. Could Trey Mann break out? Well, not really, considering Sexton, Knipple, and Ball are there and he's coming off an injury. I don't think the opportunity is really there for that. But the opportunity is there for Diabate. And if you want to take flyers on guys, like I'd take a flyer on Diabate or Kalkbrenner at the end of drafts. And then if you hear that Plumlee's starting, you add him off a waiver wire. But that's what we take those flyers for to see, even if I think the chances of it are pretty low. There are a few injuries on this team heading into this season. Of course, one of those is LaMelo Ball, who missed the end of the season with ankle and wrist issues. The wrist, to me, is almost more worrisome than the ankle, because he had surgery on that, I think, as a rookie, and it bothers him continually. The ankle, he's had multiple ankle sprains. It wasn't that much of a concern last season. I'll tell you, it just wasn't that much of an issue. It was more of the wrist that caused the problem, plus they were tanking, and they couldn't win a game, so they just preserved the injuries. But again, we know the concerns there. Brandon Miller, wrist surgery. He is fine, ready to go. Not worried about a recurrence there. Grant Williams tore his ACL, probably back November, December. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Williams could be someone who just throws all of our projections here up in the air. And he might turn into a 12-team league guy. We don't draft him because he's coming back off an ACL. He won't be ready and he'll be ramping up, and he's Grant Williams. But he's a name. Trey Mann played like 5 games. And then the Hornets, my man Josh Longstaff let me down with the lack of reporting on Mann. We just heard absolutely nothing about what actually the injury was or what the procedure was, but he played like 5 games and he was out for the year. He was playing well. His role was interesting. But now with Knipple and Sexton there, that opportunity that Mann had last season, where he was on the fringes of 12-team rosters, it doesn't exist anymore. I think he's going to be fine to begin the season. They obviously brought him back on that not particularly expensive contract, but the chances of him doing what he did at the start of last season, I think, are pretty marginal. And the other one is Josh Green, who is currently actively injured. He had a surgery on his shoulder. He's going to miss the beginning of the season. He was also terrible last season, and I would think that having Mann and Sexton and Knipple sort of makes him irrelevant. Maybe Charles Lee wants to start him when he comes back because of defense. He shouldn't, but we should not care at all about Josh Green from any sort of fantasy perspective. The last thing is the schedule. The only thing to really pay attention to here is they have the equal most back-to-backs of anybody in the NBA. So if you do have that extra concern about LaMelo Ball sitting back-to-backs, and check the game log. He sat some, but not all back-to-backs last season. Also remember though, the difference between the most back-to-backs and the fewest back-to-backs is 3 over 25 weeks. It just does not matter that much. It shouldn't be a priority decision for you in drafts, I don't think. But that's how I approach it. And that is me approaching the end of the Charlotte Hornets. So, LaMelo Ball, to me, is a guy that you look at. He's better in categories than points usually. He's a second to late first upside player that you look at late third. Because, again, there are risks. And it's not just all injury. I think Brandon Miller is getting underrated. If I can get him outside the top 50, I do it every single time. If I'm sitting outside into round 5, outside the top 50, I will take him without any real issue. I will consider going into the 4th round. Honestly, I think that in the 3rd round, there are chances there, but I don't know about that. Maybe. Miles Bridges, to me, is a 60s sort of a guy. And then you take the flyer centers, the Kalkbrenners. the Diabates. You try Plumlee off a waiver wire. And then we monitor Trey Mann. We monitor Grant Williams. We monitor Con Knipple. We monitor Collin Sexton. I wouldn't draft Knipple. I probably wouldn't draft Sexton. I wouldn't draft Mann. I would draft Ball, Miller, Bridges, and a center. And we see where that goes. What you can do is you can check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl, Linktree/AlloFB Bowl. QR code, links in descriptions on my Twitter feed. It is all there. And you can also subscribe to this if you are on YouTube mobile. Hit a hype, which you go to the comments section and scroll across and a hype button will appear. Subscribe, leave your comments. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.